Here we have a demo on how to mat our artwork. First off, we're going to need a couple things to get ready. We're going to need our artwork, of course. This is a previous year's AP students' work that was left behind, so I'm going to show you guys how to mat this. We are going to need a ruler, and I always suggest using your sketchbook or a piece of printer paper and a pencil to mark down your measurements. Even though you can do the math in your head, I do recommend writing it down. So we'll come across, and first off, we're going to measure across, and we are going to look, making sure that we're at that right edge, and we're at 8 inches. I do recommend, once again, do your math, write it down. 8 inches, measure lengthwise this way. That is at 10, it's a little over, so I'm going to round it down to 10 3/4 by 10 3/4. So that is our art size. We want to know that number. Next, we need to create a measurement for our viewing area. So when we cut the mat, we're going to lose a 1/4 inch of space behind our image. So we're losing a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch here, so I am going to actually subtract 1/2 inch, because a 1/4 plus a 1/4 is a 1/2, from each side. So 8 inches minus 0.5 minus 0.5 will give me 7.5 by 10.25 inches. That is my viewing area. Alright, as we put on our mat, we need to add on some space for the actual black paper to go around. The traditional size, just for matting, would be a 2-inch mat, which is what we're going to do today. So we're going to add 2 inches to this side, 2 inches to this side, so that's going to be 4 inches. So our size across was 8 originally, viewing area is 7.5, and now we are going to add 4 inches to that, 11.5 by, and again, it was 10 3/4 in length. We're losing a 1/4 inch behind top and bottom, so I subtracted that 1/2 inch, and now we're adding also 4 inches, so 14.25. This is the size paper we need to cut down. So you find your railroad board or matte paper, whatever you're using. Here we're going to be using some black railroad board, and we're going to cut it so that we're seeing a border of about 2 inches on both sides. Alright, so we're going to head over to the mat cutter. Okay, before I make it to the mat cutter, I need to make it to my paper cutter. We're going to need to come in and crop down the size of our paper. With the paper cutter, we have our measurements across the top. We always want to make sure that that paper is flush against that top. That'll give you a straight across cut. So this paper goes right up against that edge and stays there before you make that cut. Our measurements for our artwork are 8 inches wide by 10 3/4, and I needed that 11.5 by 14.25 paper size of black paper. I always want to cut the most scrap extra, so I'm going to cut this 14.25 inches. Lift up your paper cutter, move it down to 14.25. There's the 14.25 inches right there. Line it up. Now, one thing that I'm going to have a little bit of a problem with, let me adjust this, is whoever used this last, did not cut this paper straight. So I need to get this even. So I'm going to rotate this, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to cut this edge, a little bit of a strip off. It was just that little bit, but now that makes a difference. So now I know that this part is straight across the top. So 14.25, always check that edge down the bottom. 14.25, make sure your hand is holding it nice and steady, and go ahead and cut. That's my 14.25 is now cut down. Now I need to cut that 11.5. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to rotate that edge, and put that straight up against there, and I'm going to move this over until I'm at 11.5 inches, which is right there. Make sure it's nice and flush. Go ahead, cut, and that will leave us with a piece of paper and give us roughly a 2-inch border once we go to mat it. So here we are back over at the tables. I've got my Logan mat cutter. I really like the Logan brand. They're high quality, and you kind of get what you pay for with it. They're not cheap, but they're not too expensive. All right, let's get this guy open. We're going to turn this guy around, open up our box. Be careful with this cutter. You can't cut yourself with this unless that blade is depressed right there. Once you see that blade, I can slice myself pretty bad, but as long as that's there, you're not going to cut yourself, so you're okay. This over, and let's take our mat cutter out. Move this to the back so we have some room. And we're going to turn this so now we can see our edges. Alright. So as we come in, I'm going to move this in, get a little bit better angle. There we go. Pardon my WB Mason box. This part, on most of them, lift up. You always need a piece of mat board. This is going to guard this from getting cut up. And this is your scale for your edges. So we loosen up these edges here. I always tell my students, reset this back to 0. And we need a 2-inch border. We know it's 2 inches because we did 2 + 2 = 4, and we talked about that 2 inch. So, right where it says set scale, and it has arrows pointing, that's going to tell you what side your reading is to. Slide this forward, there's our 2 right there, right to that red line. Finger tighten, doesn't need to be real tight, just enough that it's snug and doesn't move. We reset in our mat board, and we have a nice flat edge down the bottom and a nice flat edge here. I like to make sure that we use those spaces for our artwork. Take your mat board, take a look. Sometimes there's a mark, or maybe somebody did some pencil lines. This side does have some pencil lines. I don't know if you can see them right there from a previous mat. I like to lay this in nice and flat, lay that down, and I'll take a pencil and I will go, and I'm going to give myself guidelines of where to cut. So you can see that line I drew, and I'll do that on all 4 sides. Alright, that will give us this little box area right there. I always recommend taking your artwork, laying it down. You should see a 1/4 inch overlap in each section, which that does. Alright, I'm ready to cut. Lay this in, lay that right down. You will see a little channel right where my fingers are, and these little edges right in here fit right into the channel. That's where we're going to go with it. One of these mat cutters have a pull towards yourself cutter. This one is a push away, and there's a little line right by my finger right there that tells you where to start cutting. So I'm going to line that up to where I drew my line. I'm going to take my left hand, I'm going to lean it right here, and I'm just going to lean my body weight on it. That's going to keep this paper from moving on me while I cut. Push this area here down and in. That releases that blade, and nice, slow and steady, go right to your next line. Pop it out, make sure that blade is depressed, turn it, and do the same on all 4 sides. Just make sure you don't go past your lines that you drew. And here comes our last cut, and you can see we've released nice and even over there. So make sure it's up against that edge. Line it up. Last cut. If you reach and this sticks up a little bit, push that down and cut. And if you did it nice and neat, it should fall right out. If it doesn't fall right out, and it maybe is stuck right in the corner there by a little flap, don't rip it. See me, and I will get you the X-Acto knife, and I'll help you cut that little edge out. Okay, last thing we need to do, you guessed it, we got to tape our artwork in. Alright, before we do this, we want to make sure that we know which side is our back. It's the side with the pencil marks on there. Don't tape that to the front. Alright, we got our artwork. We're going to need some masking tape. You're going to flip over your artwork and find that ever so elusive edge. Go ahead, peel off a piece. You need a piece that's just a little bit shorter than the length of your artwork. You can see this was already taped into a mat. I'm just kind of, again, using it as a demo. And we'll take this and I'm going to lay it down so that as little bit of the tape is on that artwork as possible. You can see before they taped a lot on there, but I'm kind of right at that edge. And I like to flip this over, lay this down, make sure you got your right side of the mat. So I'm going to kind of flip it so my clean side is up. And I like to stand up while I do this because I can look right over top. Carefully lay that down. I don't want to see any of the white table sticking out by accident. So if I go and put that down, I'm like, oh, nope, that's not what I want. I didn't push down yet. I can lift. I can move. Making sure it's nice and even. Once you're happy, go ahead and give it a nice push down. That will secure our artwork right in. We never tape all 4 of our edges because as humidity changes, the paper grows and shrinks. And if we do tape all 4 edges, as it grows, it won't allow it to go back to the original paper size, and your paper will look all warped and bubbly. Alright, once this is done, just be careful not to rip this as you're moving it around, and you are ready to present your artwork. See you later.